guys, this is just a quick one from me today on purchasing power parity, PPP. And some of you in my GCSE class, you've been asking me to just put a little video out with regard to what this PPP thing is all about. If you want to read more about it, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you consult your copy of The Economist and the edition January 14th to January 20th, 2017. On page 68, you will find some information there on the Big Mac Index, which is all about this whole notion of PPP and whether a currency is over or undervalued. So let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. This PPP thing, what does it actually mean? I'll just get some pens sorted. So I've got a very straightforward example here just to illustrate this. In PPP, we are looking to see what the purchasing power of the currency actually is, because that will reflect the amount of goods and services that you can buy, the basket of goods and services that you can buy in a particular country, and obviously that then determines your standard of living. So let's take this example. Here we have two countries, United States and Japan. And GDP in the United States we're saying is $16, GDP in Japan is $18. Now, purely on that basis, this is simply values in US dollars, USDs, one would anticipate, one would think that in Japan you were better off because you've got $18 rather than $16. But of course, that does not tell us how much and what size, particularly, of a basket of goods you can purchase in the United States and Japan. And hence, we have this whole notion of the Big Mac Index. So The Economist uses the Big Mac Index because the Big Mac is, generally speaking, really the only homogeneous product which you can get globally. So it's a way to assess and test using like with like in that respect. So, let's assume that the price of a Big Mac in the United States is $2 and the price of a Big Mac in Japan is $6. Well, on that basis then, if GDP in the United States was $16 and the price of a Big Mac is $2, obviously the basket of goods you could buy there would be 8 Big Macs. If in Japan, on the other hand, the price of a Big Mac was actually $6 and its GDP is $18, then of course you can only buy 3 Big Macs. And so this tells us something a little bit about the purchasing power of the currency and hence the standard of living, because now what we'd be saying is, in terms of GDP at purchasing power parity, assuming that $1 will buy the same equivalent in terms of the good in one country compared to another, we can buy 8 in the United States and only 3 in Japan. So now we're saying actually, in spite of the fact that GDP in the United States is lower than in Japan, we're actually better off in the United States because we can consume a larger basket of goods. Because in effect it's costing us 3 times as many US dollars to buy the same good in Japan. So one might anticipate therefore that the Japanese yen in that instance would be overvalued. If we then try to work out a GDP figure, but taking into consideration this whole notion of how many goods and services can we purchase in both countries, well, if we start from the point of the USA at $16, which will buy 8 Big Macs, well, given that you can only buy 3 Big Macs in Japan, the appropriate and the accurate level of GDP at purchasing power parity would be $6, because obviously 3 Big Macs times the equivalent price in the United States, which is 2, would give you a GDP of 6. And so now that is an accurate reflection and an accurate picture of the actual purchasing power of the currency and how many goods and or services and what size of a basket of goods and or services you can buy in that particular country. So this whole notion of PPP comes about because when we look at GDP numbers in different currencies, that can be slightly confusing because it is not taking into consideration the purchasing power of the currency. And so we do a PPP conversion, which then tells us precisely and an accurate comparison, as accurate as can be, how many goods and services we can buy in that country. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is the whole purpose of GDP values at purchasing power parity. So I'll leave it at that for today, ladies and gentlemen.